Hello, my data friends. Welcome to our channel. You're probably duplicating stuff in Tableau all the time. It can be worksheets, dashboards, or even metrics. And you might be doing it wrong. So let me save you a lot of time because the difference between duplicating and copying and pasting might sound obvious, but I promise you it's not. So let me show you this quick trick so you can use the right approach for your use, and it will save you a lot of time. I promise you that. So stay with me until the end. I promise you'll be worth it. If you're not yet subscribed to our channel, please do that right now. Leave your thumbs up in your comments below. Let's go. So I recently learned this, and it was actually by accident, but it's very neat, and the distinction is very it's not that obvious, but it's very clear on when you need to use one approach versus the other. So I have this templated dashboard here. It's using the Superstore's data sale, and I have different dashboards here and even different views, right? So a dashboard contains multiple views. In this case, it contains this table right here, a map, these area charts, and so on. And this chart shows profitability. So it shows sales and profitability. So let's say, for example, you need to create an exact copy of this dashboard, but using quantity, items sold, for example, right? Your approach might be to right-click over view and go in here and just duplicate, right? That's one approach for you to do that. You will create a copy for overview. Now you have overview 2. And now you can go inside and change these metrics. So let's go inside the map, for example, and we're coloring the map using profit. So if I look for quantity and I start to color the map for quantity, right, the colors change. I'm not gonna worry about colors or anything. It changed in this view, but it also changed in the original view that we duplicate. You see, so in this example, we actually didn't want to duplicate. We wanted to copy and paste. We wanted to create a duplication of this dashboard, but we wanted to recreate each individual sheet inside that dashboard as well, right? Using that approach, for example, let me just Control-Z this thing. I could have gone inside this view, right? I could have duplicated this view and then messed up with this view and replace this one with a new one, right? That can take a lot of time for you to do, to place everything exactly where it was. You might have to change the padding and everything to make it look like it's perfectly aligned. So let's avoid all that. So let me delete this dashboard that I recreated. And instead of duplicating, and there's a use case for that, but that's not the case for my example. Instead of duplicating, I'm going to select this option. I'm going to copy, I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to paste it. And we'll see the difference. It takes a little more time for Tableau to do that. But now I have this overview 2 that it plays somewhere in here. Perfect. But I can see that it also duplicated all the worksheets inside that view. You see? So now I have all these worksheets. They're unhidden by default when I use this approach. I can select them and just hide them. I miss total sales. Now, if I go into this overview and I go inside this map and I now change the coloring to quantity, right? It changed the color. I can go back into this overview 2 dashboard. But if I go into the overview 1, the color is intact. So these are not only dashboard duplications now, but the sheets themselves were duplicated as well. And I learned that for dashboards, that's usually the case. Usually when you duplicate a dashboard, you want to use the headers, you want to use the filters, you want to use whatever. But you usually also want to duplicate the worksheets as well, because the new dashboard will contain views that will show something completely different, right? You're using different metrics, you're even using different breakdown levels, for example. So that's usually the case, at least in my experience. Then this approach, instead of duplicating, but copying and pasting, might make more sense. And that also applies for metrics as well. And I just learned about this and it saves me a lot of time. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I have created 2 parameters here. Start date and end date. Okay, so I created this set of 5 different calculations for profit. So let me go inside this profit, this period, right? The TP here means this period. So I'm applying the filter for start date and end date inside the calculation. I learned that that's easier when you're using year-over-year calculations and month-over-month calculations. You can also use level of detail, but that might get messy when you have different filters for other categories, for other dimensions, excuse me. It can get really messy, right? So embedding the filters inside the calculation can fix for that. And that's what I'm doing right here. So I have if the order date is greater than start date and less than or equal end date, then return profit, okay? So it's very straightforward, very simple. I build the same calculation for last month, for example, right? So if order date is greater than, I included a date add for last month, a date add for last month for start and end date, then profit. Very straightforward calculations, and you can pause the video to check them out. I did the same to return the profit for the same period of last year, right? Instead of month, I'm using year in the calculation. And finally, I created calculations for month over month and year over year. So it's basically the sum of profit for this period divided by the sum of profit of last month minus 1, right? That will return the percentage change month over month based on the filters I have for start date and end date. And these calculations work perfectly. They work fine. But let's say, for example, if I want to recreate this set of 5 calculations, but instead of profit, I want to do the same for quantity, right? So I'll select the 5 calculations, I'll right click, I'll select duplicate. That's the first approach. And you'll notice something, right? It duplicated the calculations and it added the word copy in between brackets. That's what happens when you duplicate a metric or a dimension here in Tableau. It creates the word copy at the very end. And if I go inside the profit this period copy, for example, right? I can see it's referencing profit, which is fine. And I need to change the name here for quantity and whatnot. But the thing is, if I go into the month over month copy, and here's the trick, I will see that even though I'll need to change the name of this calculation, the calculation itself, it's referencing the original fields from which this calculation was copied from, was duplicated from, if that makes sense. So that means when I go and edit these new calculations to use the measure quantity, I would have to go inside each of these metrics and change. Instead of profit TP, it needs to be the new quantity TP. Instead of profit last month, it will be the new quantity last month, right? So that's one approach, and it will take me a lot of time because I not only need to change the measure names, I also need to change the measure calculation. So not much of a duplication for what I need because I need to redo a lot of the work, right? Okay, so that's one approach, right? And again, there might be a use case when you need to exactly duplicate, but in this case, when you're duplicating a set of metrics that are referencing another matrix in the same bulk, if that makes sense, we can use the other approach. So let me show you what that looks like. So let me Control Z this thing. There we go. So I'm going to select the same set of metrics, and instead of duplicating, I'm going to do copy and I'm going to do paste. And look at the difference. It created the same set of metrics, but instead of the word copy, it added the number 1 at the end of the name. And it's also out of the same folder that I had created. So something else is going on, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add them to the same folder just so it's easy for me to reference. Okay, so let's go inside the profit this period, for example. I'm going to edit this guy. I'm going to call it quantity. It's quantity this period. And instead of profit, we want to do quantity. Right? It's fine so far. For last month, there's no way we need to go inside and redo the same thing. So quantity, and I need to change the metric to quantity, right? But here's the thing. When I get to the month over month calculation and I go inside it, see how now it's already referencing the calculations that were copy and pasted. So I only need to change the name of this calculation. I don't need to change anything in the calculation itself because it's already referencing the new calculations that were pasted over. Because this is not a duplication, it's a copy and paste scenario, right? If that makes sense. So when you have like sets of calculations, just like I had for time intelligence calculations, this might make a lot of sense to use copy and paste instead of duplicating, because it will save you a lot of time. You only need to change the name of some of these calculations instead of having to go inside each one of them and change the metrics themselves, okay? Let me tell you, I had a dashboard where I had like 8 different metrics where I had to recreate a set of 6 different calculations. So it was about like 50 different calculations I had to duplicate and redo. And it saved me a ton of time because these calculations were referencing themselves, just like this one. And yeah, it saved me, I don't know, a good amount of time just by using the copy and paste instead of duplicating, right? So just to recap, when you're using duplication with dashboards, you're duplicating exactly the dashboard as it is, and you're not duplicating the sheets that will carry over. So if you make a change in a sheet in the new dashboard that was duplicated, it will also change the original one. But if you copy and paste, you will create a copy of the worksheets that are inside the dashboard as well. And that's usually the case when you're duplicating a dashboard. And that way you can mess up the new dashboard without ever messing up the original dashboard. And for calculations, it's not as intuitive as we might think, but this can save you some time, right? Instead of just duplicating sets of calculations, if you're copying and pasting bulk calculations that reference themselves, this might make more sense because you only need to change the name of the new calculations and not everything inside the calc, right? Of course, this is a simple example, but you can have like very complex calculations, and it might take you a lot of time to kind of do all that work inside with a duplicated calculation. So hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to leave your thumbs up and your comments below. See you in the next one.